Okay, today's video we're going to help somebody tune out a 13-inch quad. I got a bunch of data here that he uploaded, just some real starter stuff. So this will be really helpful for just getting started with it, and you have to be really cautious because they can you can get an oscillation, an I-term oscillation or other type of oscillation that the thing can fly away. So whenever I get a big quad tune in hand, I'm always really cautious at the beginning because you don't want to crash them. Even the props are kind of expensive. So it just shows how you can this video will show how you can kind of step through that, and hopefully some tips and tricks along the way with that as well. Enough jabbering, let's get into it. I'll talk you through the settings that he has here. I'm always surprised when I see this analytic that only 40% of you are subscribed to this channel that are watching this video. So if you found this content helpful, please hit the subscribe button. I deeply appreciate it. So gave him some initial tips on what to do with the setup, just to start doing some initial flights. Again, here's the bird, so you can kind of get a look at what that looks like. So it looks like a pretty big 13-inch with decent amount of weight and all kinds of stuff on it. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. You can see 13-inch motors, 20 or 40 to 15, so that's good. And it's going to be running higher voltage here as well. I think it's 12S. Yeah, that's right here, 12S. So motor size looks good. The 4215 to me for a 13-inch. He's on the right spot. You can see here, I did make some recommendations, initial settings on the drone, like setting the I-term relax cutoff to 5, setting the matrix filter minimum down to 30 hertz. So those are some stuff I would just do right off the bat. This will help with when you're doing stick inputs, that you don't get I-term relax, and then this will let that matrix or the dynamic notch go down pretty low. Again, this is iNav, so keep that in mind when you're looking at this, why we're calling it the matrix filter. It's because we're dealing with iNav. All right, so with this going in, he did a flight. It was just a short kind of hover, some light stick inputs. You can see he has the I-term relax set to 5, which I recommended, so that's good. The rest of this is fine. You know, this is the that's okay for now. Usually I would set this to 1 for tuning, so I would set this to 1 and this to 1 as well. That way your D term is not boosting or going down or anything like that in between. The rest of this is fine. Anti-gravity, I mean, that's fine for now. We're not getting into this part for the anti-gravity and throttles. We're not worrying about that for now. Here's some of the filter settings. You can see we have the matrix filter set to 30, so it's basically as low as it goes. 3D means there's a lot of RPM filters there. There's 3 on each axis. Yeah, I would go 3 on each axis. So that should be plenty of damping to follow the vibrations on those. We got the D term down at 50 hertz for the cutoff. That's appropriate. We have the some of these other filters down here as well. Main down at the 50 hertz. So on a 13-inch, your vibration, your frequencies are really, really low. The oscillations, because it's such a big thing. So you should be thinking like 30, 40, 50, 60 hertz. That's where your motor band's going to start, and it's going to go from like 50 hertz up to like 100 hertz. So just be thinking really low, you know, oscillation frequencies that for the motor vibrations you're trying to damp out, which is tricky because that's in your control frequency ranges too for like prop wash and things. So that's why they're a little bit more difficult to tune. It's a part of it. That's not the end all be all for it, but looks like may have the RPM filter on here. I'm not sure if that's working or not. That's fine. It doesn't work super well for iNav because it's kind of slower, but with big birds too, you are kind of moving slower, so it's not like you're doing these aggressive racing moves where the motors are ramping up and down and you need this super fast signal to track the motor RPMs. Here's the PIDs to start with. So they're in general, these are low. And generally for a 10-inch, these are going to be at least double this, maybe triple this for an ultimate tune for a really good flying. But to start, that's fine. That's fine. Specifically, we're really, the first thing we want to cue on is this ratio between the proportional gains and the integer gains. If the proportional is too low, the integer gains will control the quad, and that's where you get the oscillation flyaway stuff. Or it's not so much a flyaway, it's a wobble away, wobble to the ground. It will start to wobble in an uncontrolled oscillation, and you won't be able to get it back. And that will ultimately end up in it crashing. Like, again, it's not going to fly away, it's just going to wobble down to the ground and break arms or props and things like that. So this is the deadly thing that you need to watch out for, first of all, on a big quad when you're first doing the gains. So I'll show you here in a second, but this I gain needs to be lower in relation to these P gains, or the P's need to be higher. One or the other. This ratio between this 28 and the 75, or the 30 and the 8 and the 83 or 82, or the I is too much in relation to the proportional. So opening that log, that's what this is. We're using iNav Explorer, using my UAV Tech templates. Link down below. It's basically, you go to uavtech.com/blackbox, and then if you're a Patreon, you can download the templates for iNav. The Betaflight ones are there for everybody. So that's what we're using. We're on trace template 5, so you'd hit 5 on the keyboard after you load the trace templates, and that's what we're looking at here. As you can see, there's not a lot of heavy stepped inputs. Like if I look at this whole log, like we have a little bit of a stepped input there, and a little bit there-ish, a little bit on Y, or the pitch axis there a little bit. And then he's in horizon mode, which is fine. That doesn't matter. And then we have a little bit more stepped inputs here, which are not too bad, honestly. I think with the motors, from just looking at this, those PID gains I don't think are going to be triple. I think they could be possibly double, but those are pretty powerful motors. And you can see it's following it fairly close here. It's not doing really too bad of a job. So the more powerful your motors are, the more or the lower your gains will be. So with super powerful motors, you're gonna have lower gains. With weak motors, you're gonna have higher gains. So looking at this a little bit here, not too bad, not too shabby here. Let's look at it a little bit. Really, the end all be all is we're looking at this burnt line here. This thicker line, this is the set point. This is what you're commanding it to be at. This is where the quad is actually doing this gyro rotational. This is a rotational rate. So like right here, there's 0 rotational rate input, and there's 0 rotational rate of the quad. Here we're commanding the rotational rate to go forward, and then it's measuring it's starting to go forward, and then this is a certain rate in degrees per second, and then as the quad, you can see we're rotating back to rotate back to 0 degrees per second, and then the quad is moving back towards 0 degrees per second. So I'm going to cue in on this first move here, and you can click the little things here to see kind of a zoom in on that axis. This is the roll axis, and we have this slight little nudge move to the right, and then it settles. And we can see in here a little bit this is overshoot. So generally what we're seeing is the quad rotates with it and then overshoots. We rotate back. You can see here now we're rotating back. This is 0 degrees per second here, so now we're actually telling it to go back the other way. Rotate over, interesting. And then back the other direction. Oh, because this is horizon mode, that's why, okay. So he rotated over, set it back to 0, but the horizon mode is commanding it to go back. Big thing I'm keying in on here is that you can see this I term, right? The I gain here. And the I gain is, going up. And so it's commanding to rotate. I guess this is a subtle thing, but this is what I'm looking at. See if I can kind of articulate this. You can see the red line is the P gain. That's commanding it to move forward, to rotate in the same direction. The I gain also does the same thing, so they're both pushing in the same direction. Then it hits that rate, that rotational rate, so the P gain drops to 0 right here. So it's real subtle. See how the P is real light? and then the I gain is actually pushing a little bit harder. Notice how the P gain now is at 0 here, but the I gain is still telling it to rotate forward. That is what's causing this overshoot. The I gain is still commanding it to keep rotating forward, where the P gain is actually telling it to rotate in reverse. That's that I gain is basically doing too much control, and we need to dampen that I gain out by reducing that gain, that I gain that's in the PID controller. So then if we keep following that, you can see that the proportional gain is actually trying to get it back onto the set point here, which is what the controller is commanding it to do. And it's pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. We get to this spot where right here, where the quad actually matches the rotational rate the set point is commanding. At this point, the P gain is pushing in the opposite direction, but it overshoots again. Well, why? Because this I gain, look at the I gain, is still down below this dashed line. So the I gain is commanding it past and to overshoot the set point. Essentially, what you're kind of looking for and what you see here that off the bat is when you see this I gain and the quad's rotational rate, and those kind of match the same shape. They're not exactly the same amplitude, but they're kind of matching the same general oscillation there. That tells you that the I gain is controlling the quad's movements, and you never want that. So how to dampen that out is you need the I gain to be lower in relation to the P gain, or the P gain to be higher in relation to the I gain. Those two gains the proportion between the two needs to change. And this is the kind of stuff you have to worry about on these initial flights, is this kind of stuff, this ramping oscillation. Now, luckily it damps itself out here, but you can see, keep your eye on that I gain. See how that I gain is kind of building in oscillation? The P gain's not building in oscillation, right? You can see the P going up and down and up, and that's not really amplifying, but the I gain is starting to build an oscillation, which is then causing the drone to build an oscillation. And this has nothing to do with I term relax because he's not giving sharp inputs, right? This is outside of sharp inputs. That's the danger. And that's where it can do a wobble away, so per se, that it can wobble itself down to the ground and break. So looking at this here, what I would do is I would probably have these I gains for now. And I would take this down, so it's going to give you to a 41 and a 32, something like that. And that's what I would set them at for now. That's going to make the drone potentially more drifty in wind conditions, but that's the least of your concerns. You don't want it to wobble down to the ground. Don't do that though for the yaw. Yaw is a totally different axis to deal with. Yaw is, there's no thrust vector on yaw, right? There's no prop speeding up or slowing down to push yaw. It's really air drag on the props and moment of inertia for when they speed up. So what I would immediately do for yaw is I'd set this to 80, leave this at 80, and then that would be it for yaw. So put this at 80, put this at 80, have these two, and that would be the first piece of advice. Now, we're just looking at the roll axis yet, but we can also gather some information about the relationship between the P and the D gain. So P damps I, so these two gains relate to each other, the ratio between the two. So we didn't raise this, but we dropped this, so that deals with the ratio. So if I take this number divided by that number, it's going to be a lower, or actually higher. If I take this number divided by this number, it will be a lower ratio, right? So now the next thing we can look at, since he does have I term relax set appropriately, which was the goal, now I can, when he actually does sharp inputs, that's going to lock the I gain. So that will take this out of the equation on sharp inputs. What we were looking at before was not necessarily sharp inputs. So the I gain was not locked out. So that's what gave us an idea between the proportional integer gain. Now we're going to look at sharp inputs at the relationship between the proportional and the derivative. And you can see here, how do I tell? So you can see it's obviously more of a sharp input. We're out of horizon mode at this point. And how do you know the eye gain's locking? Because it flatlines. See how it comes, it kind of builds and then flatlines right here, this eye gain. That cyan line. Same thing over here, it builds and it kind of locks out. When any gain just flatlines, something in the program is making it do that. Otherwise, they'll never flatline. So it could be a limit, or in this case, it's the eye term relax. Again, what eye term relax does is it detects when you do a sharp input, and when you do that, it will just lock the eye gain to wherever it's at through that. The lower the eye term relax cutoff is, the less sharp your input will need to be. So if you have a really high eye term relax input, it has to be like a super sharp input that you'd probably never reach. If it's a lower one, like 5, or even usually it's low as like 5, then your input doesn't need to be so sharp, and it will lock it out, which is what you want, especially on a big quad. Typically, like racing drones, it's like eye term relax at like 15, 20. On a big quad, it's usually 5. Maybe even lower, like a 3, but then you could lock out your eye term too much as well. So we know it's locked out, so we can look at the same thing. Let's look at the burnt line here, where the quad's actually at, and you can see we're still overshooting, right? So the P gain is pushing, this ascending limb here means it's pushing the quad to come back to 0 degrees rotation per second, right? And P gain is pushing the quad to do that. So that's the pushing gain. Eye term's locked out. It builds a little bit down here, but nothing that's really controlling this. And we still overshoot right here, right? You can see it overshoots down, it oscillates back up, and kind of settles. See, and notice how it's much sharper, right? It's not like oscillating down. Like before, that eye term oscillation was like lumbering. It was like, I didn't change the scale here. So it was like way oscillation down and way oscillation back up. This is like oscillation down, back up. So P gain oscillations are going to be really sharp. You probably wouldn't be able to really see them. Like you're not going to see this overshoot or this wobble. You can hear it. That's really tough on a big quad to hear it. On smaller quads, you can hear it, like 5-inch quads. You can hear it. It's like a brr, like a vum. You'll hear sometimes when you're doing full rate flips and rolls. So here you're not going to see it. You're probably not going to hear it either, but you can see it in black box. Long story short, what we need to do in that case is take these D gains and move these up. So I would probably take this up to a, and there's some judgment call here just from experience. So looking at this, it's not too bad. It's pretty. So here we have some eye term oscillation, so we can't look at that. It's not too bad. It's pretty close. You can see it's on the eye gain. Yeah, let's see, that's eye gain stuff here. So we have to ignore this one. Now here's another good one. So we're not overshooting up top too much, right? It's just this little bit of overshoot down here. So we have the eye gain locked out, but still overshot. See, eye gain's locked, and this overshot here. It's really close. I think you're getting some of it here. Like some of this overshoot is this eye gain still pulling it past. So we still are dealing with it some because it did build up a little bit in here. I would take these to like, I think 35 and 40. So I would put this at 35 and I'd put this at 40. And I would probably round this off to 30. So I'd make this 30, this 30, just for simplicity. So 30, 30, 80. This would be, I'd put this at 30. Put this at, I guess 40. So 30, 40, 80. This would be at 35, and this would go to 40. Yeah, that's what I would do. So that would be the settings recommendations based on what I'm seeing here. And just in general, you can see it's not that far off. We did have some I did grab some data for the raw vibrations, but we're not really making the quad fly hard enough to see any meaningful. This is not a full flight. It's kind of like just hovering and twitching around a little bit. So it's the filtering here so far is fine. You can see that, you know, there's a lot of low end vibrations here. So if we bring this up, you can see there's a lot of this low end stuff. That could just be that oscillation at the end. Looks like there was some trouble here at the end. Yeah, some trouble here at the end. So if we cut that out, and just say, so we can go to the O key to cut that out of the log, and then go back and look at that. Yeah, yeah, that kind of goes away. So a lot of that low end stuff that was down in here, which I'm holding the shift key down so you can get this little marker up. Like as I'm hovering over this, I'm holding the shift key down. That brings that little marker up. That's gone away. So that's that, I guess, crash at the end or whatever happened there at the end. I don't know what happened. And then to get, like if you chop off some log and then you want to see it again, just hit O and then O again, and it will go to the end. So I don't know what went on here. I'm just gonna ignore that. Some stuff at the end, some bad stuff at the end looked like it happened there. Looks like it was kind of getting out of control or something. So what I would also do at the same time is take that information and I would start to use this tool. So I have this iNav, or this PID Calc tool. And we're gonna do, what did I say, 30, 35, what did I say here, 30? No, I said 35. And then it was 30 as well. I think we were saying 40 here and 40 here. And this was 80 and 80. And the reason I use that is that now that we have that in there, I would go fly this, right? Fly this, do the same moves. If, you know, I would make tweaks to these gain ratios here based on that as well. And then from there, the last point of that, once you get it flying well and getting more comfortable with the stick inputs, like there's a trust factor in these big drones, at least for me. They're like little steps. Okay, it feels better. It feels like I'm in control more. Give it a little bit harder twitch inputs. He's giving it pretty good twitch inputs there. Like feeling like, yeah, there's a comfort level. There's no desyncs. I'm feeling a little bit comfortable, you know, with it. I just need a couple flights personally to get like comfortable with it. So I feel like it's not going to crash. Cause like I say, I don't crash big drones when I receive the flight. They crash themselves, not because of the PID gains, cause I'm so cautious. Like this is all through experience. But like desyncs are the next enemy of big drones. Like, does it have a desync? Can I give it good sharp inputs and it doesn't desync? Because if it desyncs, it's coming down. And that's not you, that's a mechanical failure that occurred due to an electrical issue most of the time. But ultimately, once you start getting more comfortable with that, then you can start taking all the gains and moving them up and down. So like you can use this master slider. These are your ratios of gains, and you can say, okay, well, I want to slide those gains up a little bit to get some more control, and you can use this to keep the ratios between them all, but just move all the numbers up or all the numbers down. You can use these two to tweak the ratios. Like say you're like, okay, well, that was good, but I need a little bit more. I still had some I term, you know, influence there. I can use this to say, okay, I'm going to just bring this slider down a little bit. That will drop these gains. Personally, I just would just tweak the numbers here. You don't need to use these specifically to do that. But the big thing I use this for is just this slider here. So I can slide the stuff up and say, okay, if I multiply them all by 1.5, I don't want to like sit there and multiply them all by 1.5. I just use this and it does it for me, and I can. And a lot of times I'll round these off too. Like I might set this at 55 and 55. So it'd be 45, 45, 60, 60, 55, 55. And then I would most likely in Yaw, I would probably just leave these alone at 80. I'd usually ignore these. Just again, like I said, Yaw is a totally different access. But that's what I use this tool for. Again, you can use the ratios here as well. If you need something to remind yourself to leave Yaw alone, I just set that down to 0. And it doesn't show me any numbers there, which then I ignore them. So I wanted to show you this other thing too. So before I got back to the gentleman, he decided to tweak it, do some tweaks himself, and he took all the gains and lowered them and did a flight just with lowering it. And you got to watch out for this. So low gains in general will look like I term influence. So you can see now we have really low gains, 8, you know, you can see the gains there. And you can see how it is just lumbering to, it's not the I gain. So you can see the I is kind of like flatlined here, but it's just not following the sticks very closely at all. So you're giving it an input and it's sluggish, but then that input it's sluggish to go into the input, which that's okay. I think your body, like your brain can deal with that. But the problem that your brain freaks out at is it's sluggish to stop the input then too. So it will like go to to start rotating, and then it will just keep rotating. And it's like, that's where it starts getting crazy out there. So lowering the gains is just gonna make this draw out. Like I didn't change the ratios here, but you can see how this is really not following the set point at all because of how low those are. If I take that and kind of show that in relation to this, so let's go to here again. Let's make sure the zoom factors are the same. So let's go to 100%. Sure, this is bigger here. Yeah, 100 and 100 and 100 and 100. Yep. Okay, good. But like if we look right here, so look at this big input here with really low gains. It doesn't quite get to it. And then it just let's see how this is a much tighter match. You can definitely feel that in the air when you're flying. It's going to feel very sluggish and lumbering. And see, maybe here's a different example, just kind of mirrored. But see how this is more closely matching the actual inputs that you're giving. So this will feel out of control because you're giving it inputs and it's not really following it. This is going to feel more in control. And as we make these other adjustments I just talked about, it will feel even more in control, which will give you more confidence to make a little bit more aggressive moves, to then test your tune a little bit more, to then evaluate, then make some tweaks, which will make it feel more in touch with your inputs. So then again, you can give it a little bit more aggressive moves and just repeat that pattern till it's like, okay, this is good. Like this feels good. I feel in control. I feel confident with the craft. And then at that point, then once you start giving it heavy stick inputs, that's where desyncs may pop up. And desyncs is a ESC issue. That's an electrical issue that you have to deal with that can confuse the ESCs for where the motors are and cause it to crash. So be careful. As you increase gains and you give it more sharp inputs, that's where desyncs will pop up. Desyncs don't pop up when you're just sitting there hovering or giving it these little bitty moves. But when you start giving it these big twists and the motors ramp way down and ramp way back up, that's where a desync will arise. But that, again, that's not a PID issue. That's an ESC issue in electrical. Okay, well, that's it. Hopefully that was helpful to understand how to ease in to PID tuning for a big quad like a 13-inch. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to drop them down below. But as for now, thanks everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.